Thank you, guys. So I got the boring part, right? Although I would say everybody has data. Yeah. This one here. So we were last week. No, the other one. We were last week in Paris. We had our European conference, and a guy started with the pearl of wisdom, and I just stealing from it. I want to bring it up today to you because I think it's nice. And it comes from a aphorism from Heraclitus, 535 before Christus. And he was saying that basically there is nothing immutable except the need to change. And the guy that was speaking there, Enrico, is from Politecnico of Torino, basically did a variation to this. And he says basically that there is nothing immutable except the need to have more data, more storage. And I think it's pretty true. And as colleague said, I'm doing storage since 20 years. So this has been incredible, true, and everybody knows it in our daily life how much data we produce. About me, very quickly, Gaetano Pastore, Kai. For many people, I work for the Chinese company, but also English people, they have problem to pronounce my name. So Kai is a shorter version. I'm a technical background. I graduated in Naples. I live in Germany since 20 years, but originally I'm from Italy. Boring career, 20 years, mainly storage. I started in the early stage of flash introduction, so I've been lucky to see many big innovation, at least in our vertical. I was among the first to launch the first enterprise grade SSDs in the European market, working with software-defined storage, flash acceleration. So few things in this vertical. So I've learned a few things, and I would like to share with you some of my knowledge today. And I am since 2020 in Huawei. Good. So before we start to open a storage presentation, the first thing you wanna talk about is how much data we are generating every day. And if you look at few of our pillars, in our industry, like 5G, AI, cloud computing, those are contributing at created diversification of data in which is of course impacting our infrastructure. Just few numbers. With 5G, we are connecting 75 billion of things, and they are going to talk each other. The moment we start really storing data, this is really becoming crazy. Autonomous driving, another example, a vehicle is producing, just for R&D purposes, is producing 60 terabytes of data per day. Multiply by 360, so you get a big amount of data. This is just for one vendor, for one AI algorithm. Connected factories, 1 petabyte of data per day. Just few number to come to the next slide, which is projecting an explosion in our data production in the next years, already initiated actually in the last decades. We are getting to 180 zettabyte, and 80% of it or more is unstructured. And this is basically the part of the storage or the data that we wanna keep storing on distributed storage, and we will see it later. But the number I like the most, and I would like to emphasize, is the fact that we are analyzing less than 10% of this data. This is basically what we will be trying to do in our future, to try to make money out of the data. A few years ago, around 2010, 11-ish, I was hearing for the first time the word data is the new fuel of our economy. And we see nowadays more and more, all the question around AI, we are giving data, and this data has to kind of make our algorithm, our infrastructure much smarter and smarter. So what's the problem then? Let's see some of the the challenges in different verticals, starting from briefly in the finance industry. This is a real life example, a bank with 14 businesses department with 66 big data clusters. So for each different kind of application, they have a big data cluster. You can imagine how inefficient is this deployment of all these different clusters. And they eventually don't even talk to each other. So you don't have the full access to all your data. And of course, the level of utilization that you have in each of these clusters, of course, could be optimized. Another example, and this is relevant for what we are discussing later in the trend of the industry. If you look at the process of in the autonomous driving process of elaborating the data, there are many different steps. From the data import from data acquisition, import, processing, training, each of these stage basically may require a different kind of storage, different kind of infrastructure, different kind of requirements in terms of performance, in terms of eventually reliability of the data and so on. So each of these stage is creating eventually additional storage. So, and this lends, of course, to a big inefficiency. And the trend for the future, of course, this is nothing new. Of course, we are already working on distributed storage since many years. Many of you are familiar with Ceph, with Lustre, with GPFS, and so on. So what we are trying to do, what we are doing already, is to have a sort of big, intelligent, smart storage, which is eventually coping with all these different infrastructure, the different type of diversified data, breaking eventually the boundaries across the different typology of data, and trying to keep all together in one single infrastructure. But what I want to discuss with you today, share with you today, is about some industrial trends for the next decade. And the three big trends that personally believe that are going to impact our storage infrastructure for the future is for sure the AI enablement. What else? Yeah, everybody we talk about AI, but that's relevant, and I will tell you why. Media evolution. So media in storage means where we are storing data, which physical media. I was telling you that I started my career in the early age of flash technology. Still, we are using spindle. Somebody is still using tape. Yeah, should have been dead many years ago, but it's still there. And there are, of course, some architecture innovation. So those are the big trends that I think are relevant in our industry in the next 10 years or more. So starting with AI, eventually there are two levels of AI that will impact our storage infrastructure. So the first one is, of course, the collecting of the data coming from even edge deployments to a central platform where eventually we are understanding how the systems, in this case storage, is functioning. And basically the AI can understand how to make the working of the system better, like in terms of faulty prediction, performance optimization, capacity trend prediction. So how fast I'm going to consume my storage, or how should I move into eventually deploying my additional capacity and so on. Another level of AI enablement, of course, will come when we get smarter internally in the systems. We try to understand and classify the data. So when the storage in itself, in this case, understands what is the content of the data, it starts to classify it so that we can eventually benefit from the understanding of the properties of the data when we are going to read or we are going to handle the data itself. So those are the two levels. On the first one, I think we are already kind of at a good stage. The second one, you will see more and more things coming in the next years. No, I always press the wrong button, sorry. So we talked about another important trend, the media evolution. Yeah. So I was telling you, I started my career here. So when it was SLC, now we are moving eventually to put more and more bits in the single cell of flash technology. Every one of you is using flash in the phone, in the everywhere, right? This is going to expand more and farther. That doesn't mean that we will not use also other kind of technology, but this will come more and more. And of course, this will also impact the way we are building infrastructure so that we can overcome eventually the offset of these new technologies. This is another important trend. Sorry. Another trend, sorry for going a bit more in the technical part here of our storage world, but for who works in this infrastructure business, you probably have seen in the last years the sort of transition from old protocols. I would say old because they are kind of since many years like a SAS towards protocol like NVMe, and this because NVMe has been developed specifically for flash. And on top of these protocols on the media side, there is also the protocols on the transport side. So to get the full advantage of new flash media, you need to have also the transport protocol through the network, which is able to work on this. And that's what end-to-end NVMe native architecture are about. Keep looking into innovation and development in our industry for the future. For sure is the optimization of algorithm. Many of you using eventually open source like Ceph or like other storage solution. You are familiar with erasure coding, eventually also with algorithms that work on data reduction, like the duplication, compression, and so on. So the work that we need to do here is also to develop algorithms that are benefiting from the media itself, so that are eventually getting smarter and smarter on the way they're handling data, taking in consideration of what there is behind. And of course, we will be also integrating in our system some more intelligent chips that are working on algorithm offline, yeah, so that we can eventually increase performance in the system. You remember I was talking about autonomous driving, the way to process data. The fact that we want to make sure that our infrastructure become able to work with different protocols, what we call it industry interworking. Actually, the clear trend has been during the years the trial, for example, in the early stage, to have a unified management for different services, but still you keep different storage pools. Then you have the evolution automatically from the file storage to have some gateways that enables you to work on the same data with different protocols, but through gateways. And eventually where we want to get, where eventually the future to be more effective in the way we treat with unstructured data with different protocols, we want to have a sort of native interworking capability so that we can work with S3 or with file-based NFS chips or with HDFS with the same infrastructure without any need of any gateway translation. This natively without losing any semantics when you work across one protocol to another. So just a few words about our solution, about Huawei distributed storage. Of course, I will not spend too much time on this. The color is not really helping, but Huawei is the second largest storage vendor in the world. We've been number one in China since many years. Our distributed storage is pretty popular. It's getting more and more rewards. It's a very modern platform, which is solving eventually many of the issues I was talking about before. And let me mention also that Huawei is one of the top contributors in the open source Linux development. Good. So getting back to Heraclitus, I'm going to finish my speech for today. So we keeping in mind that data is exploding, keeping in mind that we need to, of course, try to find a solution to these big issues in the overlasting our infrastructure. So the promise of the intelligent distributed storage for the future, of course, has to improve these three aspects. At the end of the day, cost, we have been talking in the beginning about cost, performance all the time, and the simplicity of management. So those are aspects that you also find in the orchestration of the overall platform, but specifically also topping down to the storage is the same. So cost, performance, and management. So clearly here, to reduce cost in our storage world, we must have high density hardware, of course, bigger disks, bigger SSDs, to eventually to put more data in less space. We need to have better algorithm, like for protection, like erasure coding, compression, deduplication, and so on. This interworking across different protocols to remove silos. This is also an extremely important trend and innovation that we need to bring in the market. In terms of performance, all flash, of course, improves a lot of performance. NVMe over fabrics, also protocols that are enabling this performance. You will see more and more eventually dedicated hardware, which is offloading some part of the algorithm. For the management, as we said, the AI has to improve the way we are managing our infrastructure moving forward. And of course the edge cloud synergy. So you will see more and more storage in the edge, close to the application. And actually, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys today. Happy to get some questions. I also was on time.
Yeah. Really well. It's interesting, working with Chinese companies. They usually have anglicized names, so you can speak. I've never come across someone who has a name you could also would be understandable to your Chinese colleague. I can see where that comes from. I've got a question from the floor that I'll come to in a moment. But I was wondering, from your perspective, I wondered if you had any comments on the questions we were asking earlier about trends moving from public cloud to private cloud. Do you see, how do you see that playing out in your world? Do you see people who are moving towards on-prem private clouds having demands for storage that you then satisfy their needs? Is that a market you
today, I think it's fair to say in every conversation we have with customers, there is no more the question, are you using cloud or not? I think we are in a hybrid world. So everybody wants to have the flexibility to have some key stuff on-prem, some other stuff, move to the cloud and back eventually. There are a few cases where you have all cloud, eventually small companies, startups, you don't want to have infrastructure, you don't want to have hassle, you want to start quickly, you go in the cloud, you have everything. Software as a service, platform as a service, and so on. There are some others that are doing everything on premise. And also that eventually is a bit, So I think hybrid is something, that's why it's very important to have this also in the storage. This edge cloud, this concept of data mobility, being able to move data in and out when you need. So what you need on-prem, what you need on cloud. Having this said, I have experienced firsthand migration from traditional to, I'm old enough that I have seen that, unfortunately. But I have seen the migration from on-prem to cloud. And actually, we are, since few years, experiencing the coming back from cloud. Basically, also because of costs, and also because sometimes you lose control. You don't know what's happening there. So you want, if it's a critical service that is running your business, you want to have on-prem. On the other side, you also see today that I think is a big issue in or a big trend that is not here because we eventually, I don't say I forgot it, but it's coming, is the protection against attack. Ransomware attack is probably going to impact our economy a lot. It's simple to maybe even to build, a ransomware, a ransom attack through franchising you can get, and this is eventually, something that we need to consider for
I
the
used to
future.
work with WPP Group, and the finance director was telling me when they had this massive attack, and he was just working on his screen, it just disappeared, and then the whole of the WPP Group gradually disabled from terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, eventually you'd end up in saying, I try to recover myself somehow, but I can tell you after 2, 3, 4 weeks, you end up paying the ransom.
There was the question from the audience, which I'll sort of expand a bit. It was, how do you help companies meet their regulatory requirements and facilitate robust data governance practices? Now, clearly, some industries have stricter regulatory obligations than others, but everyone has some sort of data governance approach. Are you seeing more of that? Do you get directly involved in it, and do you have solutions to help?
Actually, storage is part of the IT infrastructure. Related to regulation, we see, I would say, little. So it's a bit more on the processes. So we don't have really direct,
Just sort of you're providing the components that are part of the solution.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, look, thank you very much for both the great presentation and great answers.